I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I just have to say it. This episode really needs more cheddar goblin. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Movie Emporium's Netflix TV review of Guillermo del Toro's Cabinet of Curiosities. This, of course, will take a look at episode 7, which, of course, is The Viewing, directed by Panos Cosmatos. Okay, so Panos Cosmatos is a director that directed Mandy. If you remember, I was a huge fan of that movie. I thought it was fantastic. Nicolas Cage, probably one of his best roles he's ever done. So him coming in to do Cabinet of Curiosities is not really surprising. It's the fact that, like, after watching 6 episodes of the series so far, I knew this one was going to be different. I just never go into expecting or realizing how different Panos Cosmatos can bring to the table when it comes to products and ideas and just overall arching kind of concepts. And this is no different. This is really no different than anything that you would ever expect from this director. I think what I love about him as a director is he's willing to take the abstract. He's willing to take the uniqueness, the ideas and concepts of like what makes us tick as a human, how we view the world as a human being, how our emptiness feels when we are losing something or have lost something or have transformed into something that we didn't expect. And that's what this episode is doing. It's doing that in spades. And it's just another really crazy, really interesting, really unlike anything you'll ever watch anywhere in the histories of movies. I mean, this guy does really interesting stuff, and it really shows. It shows stuff like this and Mandy, and of course the one that was really weird which was Beyond the Black Rainbow, which is crazy to say because all of his films are weird. But this actually episode has a lot of pretty famous people in it. It has Sofia Boutella, it has Charlyne, it has Eric Andre, Stephen Agee, Kevin Keppy, who I talked about before, who was in Smile, was in this. This has Saad, Siddiqui, Michael Therriault, and then of course has Peter Weller in it. And at first I thought this was going to be, I didn't know what I was going to get myself into with this. You never know with Panos Cosmatos what you're going to get yourself into, so you kind of have to go into it expecting the interesting, expecting the weird, and knowing that this might not be for a lot of people, which is honestly true because he makes stuff that is just not for a lot of people. And so this starts out in a lot of respects similar to like House on Haunted Hill, where these 4 individuals who have different kind of career paths that they've been on. One's an astrophysicist, one is a music writer, one's a book writer, one's a psychic, I guess you could say. He's able to see into the future, he's able to see into the people's minds and stuff like that. Are invited to this house of this character played by Peter Weller, and as you expect, like the saturation and like the vibrant colors of the oranges and purples, and how he uses the rays of the light, that kind of like what J.J. Abrams does, where it kind of makes a really cool kind of effect where it feels like everything's just out of place, everything's in a kind of fantastical, kind of earthly, kind of vibrant world, but also feels like you're in a dream a lot of respects, which is what he's going for. He's going for, as he says in his when he talks about these types of films, a very 70s heavy metal aesthetic, but also doing a very kind of neo wave, if you listen to like the Midnight or something like that type of feel, M83, those types of bands. That's what he's kind of going for, and you could see it. There's a point in this episode where they're driving a Lamborghini or Ferrari or whatever, and the colors of the taillights are coming out and kind of streaking, and that's just a really cool effect. You see that throughout this entire thing. These individuals are brought in a van and they're taken to this house of Peter Weller. Sofia Boutella's Peter Weller's kind of assistant in a lot of respects. She actually injects him with some heroin and stuff like that to keep him calm, and he is a guy that is very eccentric. He's made a lot of money. He is a guy that just brings, it's never, I wouldn't say it's fully explained, but it's never like 100% explained why these individuals are there. But he obviously wants them for their creative minds, their creative abilities. Like I said, they're brought in by this character who is played by Saad Siddiqui, who takes him to this house, and it's like this really cool, room that has like very rounded edges, and then they have like this kind of cool chandelier thing that you'll see the pictures of it. They have this really cool chandelier thing that looks like straight out of like a Blade Runner or maybe a 2001: A Space Odyssey. It's just a really cool set because this takes place in the 70s. It's a really cool 70s aesthetic, and like I said, when you're in this world, it's all saturated in orange and like lens flares, and they're in this world that only Panos Cosmatos can do at this point in the stage of career filmmaking. It's so incredible. Like I can't get over how the visual flair and the aesthetic flair and the production value, how he is just unlike anybody that you ever see in filmmaking. Basically, they sit around a table and each is served a drink that is of their liking, whether tea or ginger ale or some kind of beer. It's what they like, it's what they imagine. And it almost seems like this character that Peter Weller's playing has some kind of foresight, has some kind of like psychic ability, and I don't know, it's never 100% fully explained, but they get into like the metaphysical, the existential views of the worlds of each individuals. Each thing that each moment forward that they keep moving forward delves into each character's kind of passion and what they do. For instance, the Steve Agee character is a writer, and we like kind of learn, that he wants more. He wants to become more famous. He already sells a lot of books, but Peter Weller wants to offer him the ability for, to write more books and become more popular, and that type of thing. For instance, Michael, I think it's Therriault. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. He's the psychic of the episode. He's the one that, has the second sight, I guess you could say, and he's brought there for a specific reason, which I won't get into, but he's brought there for at least for the moment. But he's an individual that is just kind of questioned about his second sight ability. And then of course Eric Andre is a famous musician, famous music writer, and he's worried that his next album is going to fail. He feels like he has a void. It's a really interesting character look into the kind of ways that Eric Andre as an actor can like portray his character. He can be like really abstract and really out there with his humor, and then he can go and do something very dramatic like this, where he does a little bit of comedy in this, but it's mostly out of fear, out of scare, out of all that stuff. But just watching him and how he's able to pull into his dramatic abilities, what I think when comedians like him and Jim Carrey and Adam Sandler, they can do dramatic content and they can do it really, really well. And Charlyne Yi is an astrophysicist that has been kind of blackmailed or blackballed or whatever you want to call it in the industry for her views and ideas of the world around her. And she's an individual that is very smart, but she's always been kind of blacklisted, I guess is the easiest word to put it. And I like, Charlyne Yi. I think she's very funny. She's very humorous. But here she's playing a very darkly character that has been put into place. And what makes it interesting is what these characters that are played by Peter Weller and Sofia Boutella start offering, which is hard liquor, hard drugs, just these weird things that these characters may or may not like or have been involved with. And you just kind of see that kind of the deconstruction of the characters as the episode plays around. You see a character, like I said, that is played by Peter Weller, who kind of talks about how the idea of being, super rich can be boring. So he has Sofia Boutella, who's a chemist, who's found ways to, create new worlds for him and stuff like that. And it's just, when you're watching the first, 20, or I would say first 40 minutes of this movie, or 50 minutes, actually 50 minutes of just them around the round room just talking. And then we learn about the, Siddiqui character and what he was involved with. And it sounds like he was part of a cartel. He had a golden gun, which is up in the display. It really is just a deconstruction, a breaking down of just individuals and individualities and just the nature of who people are and how it makes people tick. And that's what's happening here. This Peter Weller character is pushing these characters into realms of uncomfortability, but trying to open up their mind to maybe something far greater than they are worth as human beings. And I love that. This is the kind of stuff I love, even though it's not going to be for everybody, because this is a very weird episode. But I 100% get why Guillermo del Toro wanted Cosmatos to come in here, because I think Guillermo del Toro appreciates what Cosmato represents to the table when it comes to humanistic horror and stylistic horror and deconstructing horror and what that takes and what that involves with, the thing about del Toro's horror films, they are very personal, but they definitely deconstruct the human emotion and the human psychology and ability. And that's exactly what's happening here. I think Cosmatos, even though he's really out there, he's an Italian filmmaker, so the Italian filmmaker in the horror aspect, they're really out there in a lot of respects. I mean, you look at Dario Argento, an Italian filmmaker. It's the same thing. It's just there is something unique about Italian horror that you get that is different than Spanish horror, or is different than Japanese horror. There is a beautiful quality. Even there's beautiful qualities to all these horror, genres in different countries. But there's truly something unique about what Italian filmmakers, especially if they do horror, what they bring to the table that is unlike anything you'll ever see in any other country. But there's just a uniqueness to the Italian horror. It's a really interesting concept, and you get nothing like it. But it leads to like the last, I think, 10 minutes of this movie where Peter Weller finally goes, why this this episode is called The Viewing, because he takes them into this room with this big rock, this an asteroid or something like that. It's almost like if they took the autopsy and that asteroid and they shifted it into a Panos Cosmatos movie. That's kind of what is happening here, because this rock, this asteroid, whatever this is, looks very demonic, looks very creepy, and looks like something out of like a very disturbing horror film. Like the shapely weirdness to it and stuff like that is really cool. And after they sniff some really interesting cocaine, they go into this room, and Eric Andre's character doesn't listen to Peter Weller's character and is smoking some weed and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden Peter Weller goes up and touches the rock. Like, this is a perfect deconstruction, a perfect example of the insane nature of like super rich people, like the multi-billionaire people, and their kind of eccentricities, I guess you could say. Because you think of all the things that he has in this room that they're in the beginning, and there are one more thing. There are really cool shots where it's like from above, and it looks like they're like encapsulated in this like round circle, which is really cool. But this feels like something that some rich person, like a Jeff Bezos or a Bill Gates or somebody of that nature, a very rich individual, would have, is just this like strange rock that he knows really nothing about. And I think that's why, the character Charlyne is brought in, because she can explain what it is. He needs some answers for this. He doesn't know what it is himself. Maybe the musician's going to do some music about it, and maybe the writer's going to write about it. Maybe it brings in like the other character, the psychic. Maybe he's able to be like kind of read into its mind because it's an alien object and stuff like that. But this can't not be a Panos Cosmatos movie without a creature, an idea being presented with a creature. And what ends up happening, and I don't think this is an homage, maybe it is, but the thing starts to the rock or whatever starts to just fall apart, and it turns into this like demonic devil horns or whatever with like their moving tentacles. And we start seeing the death of some of these individuals, and then we see like the writer's head explode like Scanners. We see the character, the psychic, they're all like freaking out. Their heads are like, they're gonna explode and stuff like that. But the writer's face kind of melts in like a Raiders of the Lost Ark bit. And of course, Sofia Boutella, who's very transfixed by it, puts her hand on it, and similar to like, I don't know, the stuff or some kind of ooze that if you ever seen like Creep Show with the floating stuff on the raft episode, it like consumes her, and then she melts, and then the character Peter Weller's playing is just kind of sitting there, kind of flummoxed. He doesn't know what's going on. Of course, Eric Andre and Charlyne are screaming and yelling. It's very funny. Some of the stuff is like really goofy. I don't know if it's meant to be, but it's really funny. And they're screaming, yelling, trying to get out. And the Siddiqui character opens up the door and it allows them out and stuff like that. And the thing, it consumes the Peter Weller character and turns into like this weird creature with like the horn tentacles in the back reaching out. It's like a really cool Doom character. I almost want Panos Cosmatos to direct a Doom movie, because I think he could bring something really cool to the table, especially in this style, especially with this creature. But this creature's like weird and metamorphosis, and it's almost like an alien organism, I guess you could say. It's really difficult. It's not 100% fully explained, which it's Panos Cosmatos, so I don't have a problem with that. But Charlyne and of course Eric Andre escape, and they're like, did we just witness that? Did that just happen? And she's like, yep, I think it did. And in the process of everything, the Siddiqui character is killed by lightning. It's pretty incredible stuff, to be really honest. I was like, holy crap, this is like even more incredible than I was ever hoping for. And the monster escapes through a sewer system and finds himself or itself, or whatever you want to call it, in the middle of a major city. It's not really determined if it's like Los Angeles or wherever it's at, but there's a really cool shot at the end of this episode where basically the camera pans back. If you ever seen Game Night with like how they make the real world look like a game board, this feels like if you were doing a set, like, you know, a claymation set or, you know, a stop motion set, and you pan back and you have this like really cool kind of it doesn't look real but is a real world, and you see the creature just walking down the the little waterway system that is there, and, you know, going into the world, going to do what it does. And I don't know if that means it's going to kill the whole entire world or it's going to create its own army. I don't know, because it ends there. But yeah, it's a pretty wild episode. It's everything I expected out of Panos Cosmatos episode. It's absolutely incredible. It has a lot of deep meanings behind it. It is definitely unique. It is unlike anything you'll ever watch. It definitely, you know, though it is somewhat obtuse and somewhat confusing and sometimes, which is, you know, if you watch Mandy, it's the same way, or Beyond the Black Rainbow. There's no denying what Cosmatos can do and what he's able to do. He's up there with Brandon Cronenberg and all these directors, you know, that have created such interesting visual horror movies in the recent few years, that it just makes you appreciate what they can do. Even if you don't like it, you can at least appreciate that they are creating something unlike anybody in the entire world. So I love this episode. It's definitely one of the best of the series. Me personally, I think it's fantastic. I'm going to give it a 9.5 out of 10. Like I said, there are some confusing stuff, so I can't give it a 10. But this is right up there with The Outside. It's just one of those really interesting, entertaining, but also thought-provoking episodes with some cool visual flair. So, yeah. With that said, it is a 9.5 out of 10 for me for Panos Cosmatos, the viewing episode for Guillermo del Toro's Cabinet of Curiosities. So with that said, let me know in the comments below what you think of the entire episode. What do you think of what Panos Cosmatos did as a director for the episode? What do you think was going on? Do you think it was something deeper than even what I was going with? But anyways, tell me what you think. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. If you like what you see on this channel, hit the subscribe button to join Movie Emporium. Hit that notification bell top to find what's coming next. If you like this video, awesome. Hit that like button. And with that said, we'll lead into the last episode of the series for the season, which of course is The Murmuring. So anyways, with that said, peace out, guys.